All right, no more hogwash. Time for our first real candidate. Chief Bookham is the town's chief of police, and only policeman. It's up to him and his trusty revolver to keep the streets clean of, one guy. But I promise you, he takes his job very seriously. It's tough work, running a jail cell that's only moderately more useful than the one in Tasmilly Village. Being a cop, he usually butts in to state the legality of whatever activity is currently happening, or to provide his insight on where the perpetrator in question deserves to stay the night. Hint, it's a jail cell. I feel like on some level this must be his idea of a joke. It's clear that he doesn't do a lot around town and that Cappytown is very peaceful when a monster isn't attacking. The guy must be bored out of his damn mind. But okay, I've had my fun giving him shit for his profession. Let's talk about the fun stuff. For starters, he's the only Cappy in town who changes voice actors in the dub. For the first 3/4 of the series, he's voiced by Jerry Labozo, who gave him his signature gruff tone. However, for the final 25 episodes, he's voiced by Andrew Rannells, who gives an okay rendition, but you can tell it's a different guy if you listen close enough.
Kirby? That's ridiculous! I can't figure you out. If you were as go-getting about work as you were about crime, you'd be rich. I know!
It's also clear that this new VA is the same one that 4Kids used for their non-diegetic narrator character that routinely shows up. Rannells' take is a lot more nasally sounding, whereas you can tell the Labozo version spoke more from the throat. At least that's how I'm assuming it was done based on how I do my impression. I tried to research why this VA shift occurred, and the only lead I could find was Jerry's IMDb page, which seems to suggest he left the 4Kids team in 2003 for greener pastures. Wouldn't put it past him. I've heard horror stories about the kinds of things that went on during those sessions. Bookham also takes the second place slot for most censored Cappy, since a lot of his scenes were cut in the English dub due to his less than disciplined trigger finger. However, the curious case of this is that we have a remnant that passed through. For a brief, and I mean brief, section in episode 21, A Princess in Distress, Bookham can be seen in the crowd of DDD and Commander V's duel. And when DDD pulls out his cheap trick, we cut back to the crowd, and Bookham is now brandishing his special issue for all the little kiddies to see. How scandalous! You should be ashamed. I can't believe you! It's pretty safe to assume that this was either a complete mistake that the censor team missed, or they kept it in just for the sake of keeping Gangu's line and just hoped no one would notice. Either way you slice it, that's funny as fuck. The final point of note is that Bookham is actually a bit of a budding singer. Practicing, but he's going places for sure. I mean, I just bought his new single last night. Here, have a listen. It's great, isn't it? Oh, the wonders of open mic night. But it's not just this one scene that shows his talent. When DDD brings education to Dreamland, Bookham is appointed as the school's music teacher. This show honestly has whack continuity. The writers will reference the smallest detail from a dozen episodes in the past, but the bigger moments are left to the wayside. And speaking of bigger moments, I think it's time we talk about the crux of the Chief's character arc. Bookham, unfortunately, has his main episode very early on in the show, which, if you know how I feel about Tough, isn't a good sign. Which is a little funny, because Tough is also a primary focal point of this episode's plot. But I've talked about Tough at length already. What's going on with our pig? Well, He fell asleep on the job once, caused an accident between the only two people in the kingdom who drive cars, and was subsequently fired for it, since he wasn't able to decide who was at fault for the crash. Or, more accurately, because he wouldn't listen to the king about the mayor being undeniably at fault. Riveting, I know, but this is DDD we're talking about. He could have accused the police chief of jaywalking
Your favorite word.
and still gotten his way. Is this even really a problem? Does Cappy Auto Insurance even exist at all? Why are we even having this discussion right now? Whatever. Regardless, Cappytown will soon no longer have a police force, and this is a problem because Cappytown is totally full of crime, guys. Like, come on. The chief has to come back. Or at least that's what Tuff thinks. Tuff looks up to Bookham because Bookham straight up lied to his face about being a part of a military group called the Rough Rangers in his youth. A group that never existed and never could have existed due to him also lying about a war that never actually happened.
We never even had a war.
Whether this was done as a scummy recruitment tactic, a petty clout boost, or just a genuine inspirational mock-up, we don't know. Though to me, it comes off as the first two, and Bookham probably tried to frame it as the third. What a real piece of work. It's enough to get Tuff on the chief's good side, though, because now he and his Cappy posse are out committing all kinds of petty crimes to get the rest of the town to realize how important Bookham is. Plumbing sabotage, vandalism, false advertising, assault, theft, fraud, DUI, breaking and entering, solicitation, armed robbery, shoplifting, aggravated assault on a police officer, and more. This eventually leads to the rest of Cappytown siding with Chief Bookham when DDD comes out with the legal order to take away his badge. But before anything can be resolved, some fuck shit happens, and Tuff gets abducted and winds up in the boom and doom of... Oh, God. I am so fucking tired of you, I swear. I'm sorry. I can't fucking look. I'm sorry. This is so fucking funny to me. There is no possible explanation why. Bookham is then forced to prove his bravery. He climbs into the scalding caldera of the Boomadooma volcano, completely unprepared, but aware of the dire circumstances. Eventually, during the perilous climb to freedom, Tuff comes clean about his misdeeds, rebuffed by the chief's admission that he was never a serviceman. But the reason why he isn't a serviceman is different depending on which version you watch. In the English dub, he says that he tried to join the Rough Rangers, but they didn't accept him. In the original sub, however, he says that it was his brother who became the Rough Ranger, and he never joined at all. Very weird and incidental line to change. It doesn't even affect his character that much, it's just interesting. Ultimately, it's this moment that cements him as a true hero, not just a figurehead of some nebulous and twisted justice system. We can come to many conclusions about the true nature of his lies, the falsehoods he spreads about his past, no matter how white the lies truly are. Perhaps he was trying to convince himself, just as much as everyone else, that he was worthy of respect and honor, despite not actually having anything to show for it. But this is something that wipes those lies clean off the board, because he did something no other police officer would have done. His fucking job. It takes bravery and determination to do what he did, something very few among the townsfolk would have the guts to do. You don't need a military background to do something like that. It comes straight from the heart. That's what separates good cops from bad ones. This cop, he's a good one. But we're not quite done with Bookham yet. We gotta talk about his wife to get the full picture. Buttercup, loving wife to the chief of police, puts on a lot of hats throughout the series, even if only briefly. Like a lot of the Cappy women in this show, she falls victim to the stereotypical trad wife life, unable to be her own person, and instead being relegated to the secondary mention of another, more well-known character. But obviously, in the early 2000s, this was commonplace. And it's the few times that Buttercup gets to shine that break the norm. For one thing, her role in the first Schoolhouse episode implies that she is a skilled mathematician, and directly shows that she often takes up the mantle of teacher when no institutionalized education is present. This scene also shows, if some assumptions are made about artistic credit, that Buttercup is a competent illustrator. Maybe it was her who drew those specific frames of Dee Dee's cartoon. She makes up the first of a routine gossip circle with other women of the town, Hannah and Mabel. We don't see it happen very often, though, which is a shame. I would have loved to listen in. Things must get pretty juicy in there. And finally, roll your eyes with me here. She's a good cook. A masterful one, even. And she knows how to decorate a front lawn with tasteful Japanese amenities. But then, what does the inside look? Oh my goodness! Buttercup's biopic begins one fateful midday with an unceremoniously broken window, the final in a chain of dozens. Like a lot of her fellow village people, she's not the best at keeping her home in tip-top shape. But unlike the rest of the village, her awful hoarder home is broadcast on live television. And naturally, despite sharing a home with someone else who should have equal say in the condition of the home, it's all her fault that the place is such a dumpster fire. She's the fucking stay-at-home housewife, for fuck's sake. That means it's up to her and her alone to keep the house clean. Otherwise, she's a failure. Even the motherfuckers who we've seen the dreadful home conditions of are scolding her. What, you're exempt from blame just because you aren't married, you make a 5-figure salary, and you are too old? Fuck that. All three of you are just like her, and none of you have any right to talk. Hypocritical bums, the lot of you. We learn from direct testimony from both Buttercup and Chief Bookham that it's not her fault. It only got this bad because Bookham kept bringing in more and more items from the lost and found, insisting that they be kept rather than thrown out. It's textbook for hoarder homes, being unable to say no when asked to hold on to things for later. I should know. I live in a hoarder home myself. It's not easy to watch as the person or people you love just keep bringing in more junk, always saying they have a use for it, even though they never do. Piling up useless item after useless item, always hoping that they'll find a way to get rid of them or reuse them for something later down the line, but they never will, and you can't stop them, so now it's your problem! Okay. I know I'm already going on a wild tangent, but as I'm sure I've already spelled out for everyone, this is personal to me. But that's behind us now. The next thing I want to talk about is something pointed out to me by a mutual on Tumblr who helped me proofread my script for the Tough video. Thanks again to her, by the way. The exact language used in the dub when talking about the mess was heavily tweaked. The terms pack rat and slob are basically only present in the dub. The sub used a lot more language referring to self-care, empathy, and other such things like that. On one occasion, Sub Escargoon directly calls Buttercup inhuman for the state of her home. And this dialogue change fundamentally altered the entire narrative of the episode, though perhaps this one was understandable. Of course, there's that selfish executive reason that showing an episode about hoarders would drop ratings and lead to some very angry phone calls, but also, kids won't understand this. They don't know what a hoarder's home is like unless they live in it. And the more direct path of using terms kids might be more familiar with, like slob, would work better to drive the secondary message of keep your home clean much better. Ideally, a perfect version of this episode would find some way to balance the two aspects of the script. Drive home to the kids that tidiness is important and that they should clean their rooms, while also tackling the harsh treatment of hoarders as failures and slobs, instead of as people who desperately need help. In this way, Buttercup can be unveiled as who she really is. A near-perfect representation of someone who, despite their outward appearances, is silently struggling every day. A neighbor whom you see at the store or in the park or walking down the road who would never be able to talk about everything going on at home because they're afraid of what people might say. She's constantly walking on eggshells, but in a way, she's also laying more eggs by her feet to step on, constantly working against herself because asking for help like that is scary. The proof is right here. At any moment, she could drop the mask. She could come clean about how dirty her space is. But what will others think? It's safer to keep up appearances and just hope no one ever finds out. Because that kind of embarrassment, that kind of shame, is dreadful. So how does her story get resolved? Kirby just cleans her house, and by extension, the homes of everyone else in town. That's it. That's all she needed. Someone else to step up and take care of the mounting problem before it can get any worse. Sidestepping all of the judgment, all of the ridicule, all of the turmoil and shame. Just an act of selfless kindness. Next up is our first section that has two Cappies grouped together. Far from the last, because there are a lot of very explicit pairs in town, and sadly, not every Cappy gets an episode all to themselves. The first half is Gangu, who owns the toy store in town. Not only does he run the toy store, handling the many orders and shipments needed to stock the shelves, but he is also a toy manufacturer / toy maker himself. As far as I know, the ratio of imported versus manufactured toys in his store is never stated, but I can imagine it's at least half and half. Making toys yourself does wonders for shipping costs, but it's also clear that toys are his passion. He also has a lot of work in general repair and tinkering, being able to soup up a toy race car into a real vehicle, and creating other makeshift vehicles to combat some bikers. Easily translated skill, I assume. Being in the toy business, his work has a lot to do with emotion and feeling. As such, we see that he is a very empathetic man, who can easily place himself in the shoes of others and understand their point of view.
I wanted to make Kirby another pet, but nothing can replace the friend he lost.
He's a big man with a pure heart. And though that normally comes with the downside of him being kinda dumb, I would argue he is far from the himbo type, considering his business smarts and areas pertaining to his special interest, for lack of a better term. He's quick to jump onto new fads and trends whenever they crop up around town, assuming he wasn't one to make them. Cappy Town gets obsessed with ninjas? You can bet he's got a whole lineup of ninja memorabilia in stock. And when a new energy drink suddenly shows up in the middle of town, he sees one person's reaction to it, and now he's throwing out campaign slogans left, right, and center. And you can tell he's good at it because he never once drinks it himself. The other half is Tuggle, who operates the town's grocery store. In contrast with Gangu, Tuggle is very one note. We don't glean very much information about him. He just runs his general store all day and then goes home. He's a very utilitarian man in that regard. He has a quicker temper than most, though in this town that's not saying much, and is often direct and blunt. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He tells it to you straight and doesn't care how it'll make you feel.
So, bag boy, does Kirby shop here often?
Well, often enough, I'd say.
He pilfers here all the time?
Well, it seems to me he hangs out in the snack section an awful lot.
Being the owner of the general grocery store in town, he has a lot of minor interactions with basically every single other Cappy, engaging in their requisite banter. However, it would be a disservice to gloss over a particular interaction he has with Kirby. In episode 59, The Meal Moocher, Tuggle shortens his trash load by giving Kirby all of the food items in his store that are set to expire. This is the only time we explicitly see it happen, but it can be inferred that this is a somewhat regular arrangement. Somewhat.
Tuggle, there's rotten food everywhere!
Hey, It's past the expiration date. I gotta get rid of it somehow.
When it comes down to putting both of them in the same room, it's clear that they riff off of each other pretty frequently. And when they're not doing that, Gus is usually there to fill in the gaps. It's the male equivalent of the Gossip Girls, Mabel, Hannah, and Buttercup. The last thing about these two that I have for you is a fun fact. In both of their first appearances, episodes 6 and 4 respectively, they have a completely different color palette. Gangu receives this gray, orange, and white color scheme. It's giving TF2 achievement icon. Yeah. Maybe Gangu is a gamer? Toggle, on the other hand, just has the normally green elements of his outfit replaced with a supple tan color. Like desert camouflage. So we have a nice, mild-mannered toy maker and a slightly gruntled but focused store owner. Could these guys really do anything malicious? Not by themselves, no, but you'd be surprised what happens when fate deems you worthy of collaboration. And it starts with blatant pollution from both of them. Late at night, they just decided to dump a bunch of their poorly selling products out in the middle of some field and hope nobody would notice. Dudes, it's in the middle of a field. People are gonna find it. You ain't slick. Rather than dumping their bum products, Tiff suggests they find a way to combine the two bad products into one good product. And the result of this joint venture? Kinder Surprise eggs. Like, literally, that's exactly what these things are, just without the box. Except these are arguably even worse, because the toy inside wasn't put in any kind of secondary protective layer. No, it's just loose under all that chocolate. And for those who don't know, Kinder Surprise eggs are illegal in the US. The Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act concludes, as a part of the 10 chapters that make up the act, that any foods containing embedded additives that are not edible are considered an adulterated food, their words not mine, and illegal to buy, sell, or what have you. And anyone who violates this restriction, knowledgeable or not, could see a fine of anywhere from $300 to $2,500 for just one egg. This is not an issue had literally anywhere else in the world. Like, I know the phrase only in America is usually said with some level of plausible deniability, but no, literally, this is only a problem here in America. A problem that can be easily prevented if parents just took better care of their children. What a joke. So, from an American perspective, Gangu and Tuggle have created a highly illegal contraband product and are now pawning it to kids and grown-ups alike without any legal repercussions whatsoever. And that's not even mentioning the clear gambling implications in both the premise and marketing of this toy, which directly parallel the gachapon industry in Japan. Tiff routinely scolds the two of them for making and selling these clearly malevolent toys, and each time they provide some kind of excuse and dodge accountability, saying this was her idea, in favor of pushing this fad to its absolute limits. Coincidentally, the next day, a new wave gets introduced. And now is where I get to mention that all of these figures are depictions of Star Warriors. Some we've met, some we won't see for a while, and some we know are already long dead. This whole aspect of the product line, including why they didn't sell very well on their own despite the apparent popularity of the Star Warriors, is never explained. At all. Not even when Mennonite is among the figures depicted. He just finds that shit hilarious.
I like that. Ah, yes.
Whatever, bro. I'm leaving you a 1-star on Amazon, idiot. By the third wave, however, the toys go from socially reprehensible to outright physically threatening, as Nightmare Enterprises tips its hat into the ring with a surprise shipment of monsters in disguise. This leads directly into part 2, but the second episode ultimately ends up being one 20-minute long fight scene. Gangu and Tuggle aren't even given any dialogue, they just become background characters fighting off the figure monsters, and then appear in the crowd watching Kirby do all the work. Or, excuse me, Tuggle ends up in the crowd. Gangu doesn't even get that luxury. Ultimately, the main figure, no pun intended, of blame ends up being completely shifted, and the original subject is left basically unresolved. However, I'm here to play devil's advocate, and I raise you this question. What if the decision to neglect Gangu and Tuggle and instead place the brunt of the issue in Dedede's hands was intentional? And not just in the sense that Dedede is the main villain, so he needs to be the orchestrator of everything, but in a deeper, commentative sense. It's been made very clear throughout dozens of episodes now that the writers of this show believe very strongly that capitalist and consumerist ideals are reprehensible. And while, yes, the working men who allow such things to be sold are at fault, the issue has much more to do with the government. Were it not for the constant pressure of capitalist society, events like this wouldn't even be allowed to happen in the first place. Making Dedede the main focus is essentially the writers saying, hey, these guys aren't in the right, but they only did it because the big man upstairs incentivized this behavior. He's the one you should really be mad at. And with this reasoning, I can make a lot more sense out of this decision, but that doesn't change the fact that Gangu and Tuggle walk away from their big episodic adventure completely unresolved and unpunished. The only two Cappies to do so. We walk away from Snack Attack with the understanding that both Tuggle and Gangu are scummy bastards who will recklessly feed into any fad that makes them heaps of money, no matter how harmful it may be. And aside from Dedede waltzing into their operation and using it for his own nefarious purposes, nothing is stopping them from doing something like this again. No statement of wrongdoing, no accountability taken, no desire to change, nothing that says we won't do this again. Not even a we'll be more careful next time, which would be the bare minimum for a situation like this. And that really sucks.